What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Total Human Optimization Podcast. Lando here. We're back after a 2-week hiatus, and we have our good friend Laura Williams here with us. How you doing, Lauren?
Hey, good.
Sorry,
How are
Laura,
you?
not Lauren.
That's okay. I get it all the time. I'll answer to anything.
That's great. So, what's been going on since the last time we talked to you? It's been a little bit since we last talked. I don't remember the last
Yeah,
subject we
yeah.
talked about exactly.
Oh
Um,
gosh, I think it was protein.
yeah, I
I
think that
could be
was,
wrong,
I
but I
think that
think it
was,
was whey
I think that was
protein.
part of it. But what's been going on in
Yeah.
your world lately?
Yeah, just I wrapped my first book, and so
Ooh,
that is coming out in October, so that's kind of exciting. Otherwise, I've just been writing. I got another dog, which you
nice.
might have just heard him
making its
chime
making
up
its
in the background.
podcast debut today.
Yeah. So hopefully he will not annoy us. But
Oh, that's fine. He'll
yeah,
be he'll be,
but
he'll be
that's
fine.
kind of it.
Yeah. So what's your
Yeah,
book
that's about it.
about? What do you got coming out?
Yeah, it's titled Partner Workouts. So pretty straightforward. It is what it says it is. So yeah, it's just workouts for partners.
Right on. Well, I
Yeah.
doing having workouts with friends is always is way better than going out and doing it by yourself. It forces you to push a little harder and challenge each other. So I guess everybody loves that.
Exactly. Exactly. No, it should be exciting to see it actually come out. We did a photo shoot in May for that, or April for that, and so it'll be nice to have like a hard copy in my hand. So
For
looking
sure.
forward to it.
So what we're going to talk about today is, you recently made a great article for us that talks about the difference between fish oil, krill oil, and as we've all grown up in life, we've always heard, especially from our parents, um, that they're taking fish oil supplements. It sounds kind of gross. If you're a kid, it sounds really gross. Like, why would I want to, take a pill that has fish in it? That definitely not something I want in the morning.
No.
Um, but a lot of people don't know why we do these things. So
Right.
first, let's start out with talking about the benefits of fish because Americans don't eat a lot of fish in comparison to something like chicken or beef. What are we
Right.
missing by not including this in our diet?
Yeah, and actually, I did a lot of research for the purpose of that article. I spent probably way more time than was absolutely necessary because I found it kind of interesting getting into all the details.
He doesn't agree.
Oh, I know. They don't like fish either. No, I don't like fish. But it turns out 4 out of 5 Americans aren't consuming enough enough fish in their
Mhm.
diets, and that could be a number of reasons. It could be they don't like fish, like me. It could be they don't know how to prepare it in a way that is easy and tastes good. Um,
It's fine.
I apologize. I don't know what's going on there. Looking out the window, we've got a whole choir of dogs chiming in here. That drives me crazy. And one of them won't let up. Abby, Abby, knock it off. Sorry. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
So, yeah, so Americans aren't eating enough fish. 4 out of 5 aren't eating the recommended but basically 2 servings a week, which amounts to about 6 to 8 ounces of fish. And even those who are consuming enough, they aren't necessarily consuming fatty fish. And fatty fish is what we're really talking about when we're talking about why you might need a supplement. So fatty fish has omega-3 fatty acids. It gets thrown around a lot. We hear about why we need omega-3s. But people don't really know what that is, and they don't really understand that not all fish has at least high levels of omega-3s to the point where we get what we need.
For
So
sure.
even those who are eating enough fish may not be eating enough of the right kind of fish.
So what are some of the types of fish that we're talking about here? On what end is the fatty fish, and what end is the non-fatty fish? And if we don't know our fish that well by name, what are some things visually maybe we can see in a market that would tell us what is one or the other?
Yeah, so the big ones are salmon. You know, you hear you need a lot of salmon, and that's kind of why it's one of those fatty fish that is rich in omega threes. Mackerel, herring, sardines, anchovies. Tuna has some, but more of the fresh tuna rather than necessarily the canned. Particularly, the white meat tuna. So if you're doing chunk white or chunk light, like white meat might be a little bit better, but it's a little tricky. It's a little less maybe than some of those other fatty fishes. In terms of if you're in the market shopping and you're like, I don't know what I need for these for these omega threes, just ask the person who is there monitoring the fish station should be able to guide you in the right direction. But the big ones are salmon, herring, mackerel, sardines, anchovies, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So in order to get these benefits, I'm from Texas. I have to ask this question. Do I have to have everything grilled or, sauteed or whatever? Can I get some omegas from a fried fish? You know, is that going to work for
Um,
me or?
yeah, I mean, yes, you can. It's not like frying things automatically takes away all their nutritional benefits. It just adds some things that you might not want to consume a lot of. So it's not that you can't have fried meals and have them be beneficial, but you're always going to get a better health effect if you have those grilled meats, those baked meats, rather than going for the deep fried fatty fatness that
otherwise
we do
known
all
as
love here.
otherwise known as delicious. But so when we
Right.
talk about these, yeah. So when we talk about these, omegas, there's a couple of different types.
Mhm.
There's some that are not as good, and there's some that the ones we really want to make sure we're taking into our diet. What are the different roles these omegas play, and what are the benefits that it gives your body? Or if it's not a good omega, which I think I'm not an expert there. I think there's one that Americans consume too much of, and it's actually bad for you.
Yeah.
So, which are the ones are the good ones, and what are the
Sure.
benefits or the detriments to health on those?
Sure. So we have omega 3s, omega 6s, and omega 9s. So most people are like, what are omega 9s? Well, omega 3s and omega 6s are considered your essential fatty acids, and they're considered essential because your body can't make them on their own. Omega 9s, your body can make on its own. And so those aren't something we focus a whole lot on, right? And omega 3s and omega 6s, you need both of them. So they're essential. Your body needs them for some pretty important functions. But we get them really out of whack. So, for instance, here in the US, typically it's not unusual for people to consume omega 6s to omega 3s in a ratio of 10 to 1 or even more than that, which is way out of whack. And so you typically want, gosh, I should know that. I believe it's 3 to 1. Anywhere from 2 to 1 to 4 to 1, I think, is the ratio that you want, which is omega 6s to omega 3s. Well, people are way off balance there. They're not getting enough omega 3s. They're getting too many omega 6s, and that can lead to some detrimental health effects, particularly when we're talking about cholesterol and heart health. However, it's not necessarily that in some cases people are eating too many omega 6s, but it's really more about they're just not consuming enough omega 3s to balance all the omega 6s that they're getting. So it's those omega 3s, and that's where we come down to with fish and fatty fish and fish oil and supplements. That really helps even out that negative balance that we all often get into.
Okay, so one of the interesting things that I was reading about in the article you created, that the omegas actually, besides all the stuff that we hear about all the time about their benefits, there's other things that it helps with, like arthritis, depression, even.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's
the
really
list seems to
interesting.
go on and on with these things.
It really does. And what's interesting, and it talking about omega 3s, but also talk as a whole, but also talking specifically about supplements and how many studies have been done on the topic to really prove how beneficial some of these supplements are. Fish oil and fatty fish, if you're consuming enough of it, it does amazing things in your body. It helps with brain health. It helps with arthritis, like you said, or inflammation. Um, it has been considered a suicide prevention mechanism
Wow.
because it's so helpful in terms of depression and mental health. Uh, Omega 3s as a whole play a role in everything. So it's an essential fatty acid. They're a key component of healthy cell membranes, and cells are everywhere. They're involved in everything. They're a key role in hormone production. They help with cholesterol transport. They help with blood clotting. I mean, the list goes on and on and on in terms of how they play a role in the body. And so if you just think about it, if your ratio is out of whack, or if you're simply not consuming enough of them at all, then you're really selling your body short as a whole because you're just not giving it this essential nutrient that it needs.
Okay. And so while we're talking about this, you don't necessarily have to get this all from fish. There's some other foods that you can get some of these benefits from. If you absolutely hate fish, there's lots of people that have allergies,
Yeah.
for fish. What are some of those other foods that you can add into your diet that can get you some of those benefits?
Eggs have some of them. Walnuts is another big one. Any sort of nut, you've got soy nuts and some of these other. Gosh, I'm thinking chia seeds. Nuts and seeds are a big one. Walnuts are a big one in particular. That's kind of where since I'm not a big fish eater, I'm like, I'll eat walnuts. But yeah, the thing is that they don't function in the body quite the same as fish does. So it's still really important, even if you're consuming walnuts, they just don't deliver the types of omega-3s in the same fashion that fish does. So it's still important to think about, okay, well, if I'm not eating fish and I am trying my best to consume some omega-3s in my diet, how else can I go about making sure that I'm getting the types of omega-3s that I need. And that's specifically DHA and EPA. I had to look down to make sure I had the acronyms correct because there's no way I can
Oh,
say
for
the
sure.
long words.
Yeah.
But DHA and EPA are the ones that your body really needs for a lot of these essential functions. And you can't necessarily get them from those plant-based sources.
Okay. Do you have any idea on how fish oil is made? Oh, really interested, because, are they just throwing a bunch of fish in a blender and extracting the
Right.
oil? What's going on?
Yeah,
How did they get
no,
that?
I actually I did pull up some information on how it's made, and I have let that information seep out of my brain. So, no, I know in terms of production, to keep krill oil in specifically at its best, the krill has to be either frozen immediately or it has to be kept live in tanks just because of the process that it takes until it's time for processing. But I have elected to forget how it's actually processed.
Sounds like something we don't want to really know about. It
Right.
can't be good. It really just can't.
No, I mean, anytime you're removing one key thing from a living body, it's probably, I mean, they're
Yeah,
not living at the time, but yes.
for sure, absolutely. So one thing we kind of have to worry about, and a lot of people, I hear this all the time, is when they're talking about eating fish more and maybe taking these fish oil supplements, they worry about the levels of mercury. Now,
Yeah.
are we being just a little tinfoil hat, or is this a real thing that we need to be aware of?
It's a combination. Okay. So if we're talking about eating a lot of fish, a lot of fatty fish tend to be anytime you're eating a fish that's higher on the food chain, it's typically got a longer lifespan. It's typically been eating other fish that have been living in the ocean for a while. And because our ocean ecosystem isn't perfect, because there's a lot of waste that has been dumped into our ocean, fish do tend to contain heavy metals like mercury. They can contain, other toxins that build up, particularly in these fish that have been living longer and have been consuming other fish in the ocean. So That's where we do, especially shark, for instance. If you eat shark, it's at the top of the food chain. It tends to have much higher levels of mercury, or the risk of higher levels of mercury than fish that are lower down on the food chain.
Yeah. Okay. Who
And
the hell is
so,
eating
yeah,
shark? I want to know
I
who the
ate it
hell is
once when
eating
I
shark.
was like 6. I don't know how this came about. I feel like I might have even requested it.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I was like 6 years old, and I vividly remember thinking it tastes like chicken.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
I
weird.
don't know. For me, even though they look scary, they're on that dolphin level for
Oh
me.
yeah, they're so cool.
You
Yeah.
know, they're just I don't know. I just like to eat things that are smaller than I am for some reason. It's cute.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
So, in some countries, shark fin soup is considered a delicacy. I mean, I feel like that's awful, and I haven't eaten it since I was 6. So we're talking like 30
Okay.
years.
So on that note, let's get on to the environmental part of it
Okay.
because we
Yeah,
talk about the shark fin soup. I've seen what they do. It's
it's
maybe not
horrible.
everybody's doing it, but
It's
what a lot of
horrible.
those cultures do is terrible. They just cut off the top fin and they
And
just
just
throw the
leave them.
shark back into
Yeah.
the water. Um,
Oh.
so there's that kind of stuff, and there's some environmental concerns as well with choosing a fish or fish oil over krill oil.
Mhm.
Also, if I'm
And
correct here.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So in my research, that's the thing that really stood out to me as what for me personally would tip the scales towards electing a krill oil versus a fish oil. And that's because krill, they're these tiny little crustaceans. They're like 1 to 6 centimeters long. Um, and I was really struck with how they're basically bamboo like. So they just keep reproducing, and we really would have a very hard time overfishing krill. They're there. We have not really scratched the surface of consuming too many of them. They keep reproducing. They're plentiful. They live in super cold waters where it's less likely to be, um, you know, have toxins in them, have mercury in them. They're at the bottom of the food chain, so they're not consuming other fish that might have toxins in them. So there are a ton of reasons why krill is a renewable resource in some ways. I mean, it's not quite like bamboo. It's a living fish, a living crustacean, but very similar. Um, Versus, let's look at all the big cold water fish that we talked about earlier. The salmon, the herring, the mackerel. These are fish, and you hear about it a lot that the fishing industry has just kind of destroyed the ocean's supply of fish. It's constantly overfished. Um, and I would have to look up, it's in the article, that it talks about how much overfishing has been done, particularly to those species of fish. And you look at that and you think, okay, well, that's destroying the ecosystem by overfishing. Um, if we have the option not to consume these fish and not to promote the type of overfishing that's been done, and instead choose krill, which is basically a renewable resource, and you're getting the same benefits, if not potentially some greater benefits from consuming krill oil, why wouldn't you do that? Like, that to me was the line drawn where I was like, krill oil is the way to go,
Yeah.
because you're not destroying the oceans, and frankly,
Yeah.
we're
So
doing a pretty good job of destroying them.
so what do you say to the people on the other side to say, well, if you're worried about overfishing the oceans, why don't you just buy farm raised? They make them by the dozens. It's fine. You're not hurting the ocean there.
Yeah, we also look at like farm raised beef and farm raised chickens and farm raised. I mean, there's just because they're farm raised doesn't mean it's a better solution for the environment or frankly for the animals at all. I haven't done a lot of research into the way that farm raised fish are treated or how they're kept, but you look at some of the other industries as a barometer for farm raised reason, and it's not the best. and you're taking, and like, let's say, let's give chickens as an example. So chickens in their natural environment, they walk around eating insects and they just peck away at their environment, whatever they're in, getting a good mix of insects and grass or whatever it is that they're consuming. And when they lay eggs, the eggs are better for us as a species as well, because of how these animals are raised. Well, if you're putting fish into, a big fish pond and farm raising them, they're not having the opportunity to go out in a natural environment, and maybe they're not getting, as many of the potential mercuries or other toxins that might be, unfortunately, in our ocean environment, but they're also probably consuming some things that they're not getting in a farm raised environment as well. So I don't know. I don't have a definite answer there in terms of, is it bad? Is it good? You have to kind of make those decisions on your own. I happen to have chickens here on my property.
Oh, nice.
I would much rather eat their eggs than eggs from the store, especially considering how we know some chickens are horribly treated when they're raised for the purpose of creating eggs.
Yeah,
So
I mean, all like, you can get into a circle of conversation if you're going to talk about anything with environmental or like almost animal abuse in when it comes to the
yes,
food industry. And I think it's,
yeah,
especially that has scared a lot of people off meat in some scenarios people that I know here in Austin anyway. But
mm-hmm.
I guess we just have to do the best that we can. Another
Right.
benefit of fish oil and krill oil is, as we are on it and we make alpha brain, it's actually known as a nootropic in some aspects. It can actually
Yes.
help that process.
Yes. So it is a brain booster. Again, it particularly, and I mean, I'm not a mom personally, but I've always kind of heard, women who are pregnant, they should stay away from eating fish because of the mercury potential problem. And the more I was reading, the more I was like, no, women should be eating fish while pregnant because of the brain development of the baby that it provides. So I know you don't have a huge female audience necessarily, but for those women who are out there, or for the guys who have women in their lives, presumably most of you, if you know anyone who's pregnant, make sure, if they're not actually eating fish, that they're getting a fish oil supplement. It is key to the brain development of the baby because of how it works as a nootropic. And that's also applies to, non-fetal humans as well. So all of us can benefit brain function wise, because it can help with memory. It can help with creating neural connections. I haven't had my fish oil today. My brain is hurting, but yeah.
That's fine. I'm feeling the same way. It's a Friday. We're recording this on a Friday,
Right. Right.
and it's going to be a tough time to get through the day today.
I know. I've already had plenty of coffee and it's not doing it for me.
So all in all, if I'm not going to eat any fish during the week at all, and I just don't want to do it, krill oil is apparently the way to go over fish oil. And if you want to just go over those benefits again, the verses of fish oil versus krill oil, so people get a clear
Sure.
understanding is why we're going this direction.
Sure. So here was my struggle, and one of the reasons why I spent so many hours researching for this article was because there is just so much good information about fish oil. There just is. It's been around for a long time. It's a proven supplement. There's very little to argue against the benefits that fish oil has, right? So there's no way for me to say fish oil's bad. Like, it's not bad. It's good. The research says over and over and over again that it's good. However, when you look at krill oil provides, and the reason why I couldn't, based on research alone, look at krill oil as being the better option is because it just hasn't been studied as long. When you're looking at, okay, there have been more than 850 studies on fish oil, and there have been 50 studies on krill oil, like, it just doesn't, the scale is obviously tipped in favor of fish oil given its benefits. That said, the studies that have been done on krill oil indicate that it's every bit as good as fish oil in terms of the benefits that it provides, the omega-3s that it provides, with some added potential benefits. So fish oil has a antioxidant in it that is not, sorry, krill oil has an antioxidant in it that's not present in fish oil. And that's thought to help prevent some of the potential rancidity problems that fish oil capsules can have.
The fish burps everybody talks about.
Yes, the fish burps. You don't get fish burps with krill oil, which is huge. It's more bioavailable, which means you can take less of it and have the exact same benefit. It has greater levels of the omega-3 EPA than fish oil has. And again, like I said before, what really tipped the scales for me is the fact that it's basically a renewable resource. Like we are in zero danger of overfishing krill for the foreseeable future. I mean, it's just amazing how much of it there is, how little we're using, and how quickly it reproduces. So for me, that one's a no-brainer, especially if you're saying, well, you know, I care about the environment even a little bit. That's
Yeah.
a big one.
So for people that want to get on a krill oil regimen, what's your recommended dosage they should take per day? And does it matter what time you take it? Does it have any benefits if you take it before and after workout, or does it any of that really matter?
I think the main thing the main thing right now is just make sure you're getting those omega-3s. So if you're not eating fish and you're not taking a supplement, take a supplement. Like
Okay.
that's the end of the story. So whether that is in the morning, in the evening, before you work out, after your workout, whatever works into your schedule, let's start making it a habit. And in terms of specific dosage, I can't remember what it is. It's less. The capsules are smaller than fish oil, but overall, trying to make sure that you're making up for the 2 to 3 servings a day or servings a week of fish that you're not currently
Can you
using.
have too much omega-3? Is that possible?
You can. I think it's unlikely that it could be a problem for most people, but yeah, you can. And that's one thing to keep in mind about krill oil too, is to follow the recommended dosages, simply because that, well, not only because, but in part because the antioxidant that's in it is basically a more potent form of, or it's very similar but more potent than vitamin A or beta carotene. And you can overdo it on beta carotene and vitamin A, so you can potentially overdo it on the antioxidant, and it's called astaxanthin. And I'm not quite sure if I've got the pronunciation right on that.
Good try.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if anyone comments and says that's not how you say it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you just want to make sure that you're not overdoing it. So follow the instructions on whatever supplement. Don't think, well, if this is good, this is better, and double your dosage. Let's not do that.
Well, right on. Well, if anybody wants to get some really great quality krill, I know a place that has it. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It's called onit.com, and you can search for krill oil. We sell it there. Ours is one of the best quality you're going to find anywhere, and you can see all the details there. And if you want to read more about this debate that we're having here, well, it wasn't really a debate. We're kind of one-sided.
Right.
Nonetheless, you can go to onit.com/academy. You can find Laura's article there. Just search for krill. It still might be in the front page by the time you listen to this podcast. And yeah, so, get informed and make sure you're including these things in your diet and you're making yourself the best version of you possible. So, Laura,
Absolutely.
where can people keep up with you? Check out your new, what is it, the couple's guide to fitness or something like that?
No, partner workouts. That is coming out in October, and that should be in bookstores and online everywhere. And then in terms of where they can find me, you can always find me over on girlsgonesporty.com. I've been doing less updating over there and more writing for other clients. So if you go to the About page there, you can follow links to all the other places that I'm writing. including
Awesome.
on
And
it.
what are the dogs' names in the background?
Oh my goodness. We've got Maybe, who is my 2-year-old pit bull mix. We've got Abby, who is my 11-year-old pit bull mix, and we've got the whiner, who you're hearing most from right now. That is Champ, and he's like a 8 to 9 month old pit bull mix. So
Right on. Well, um, I, make sure they're getting their Krill Oil too. I heard that's really good for dogs as well, right? Get in
it's
your
gotta
pets.
be.
Yeah.
Get their brains going. They need
Well,
it.
your dogs seem to have plenty of energy, so they're obviously eating the right things. But
We hope.
yeah. Well, thanks, Laura. Thanks everybody for
Thank
listening.
you.
And go check out the website. Find the Krill if you want. If you want to get into that kind of thing and read the article more if you want some more information. We should be back next week with another episode. We'll see. It's yet to be scheduled. We're really busy here. We have a busy couple of weeks here at On It. Aubrey's out at Burning Man right now, so I don't have his help to to keep this show moving smoothly, but we will do our best in his absence. And again, thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody. And until
Sure.
next time, peace out.
See ya.